got to take off this radius arm because I need to take the bushing out of the other end. So basically these are wired up with an aircraft type wire to stop the bolt from coming out. And the tools you need is basically just the welding wire, the wire, locking wire, and basically a tool like this, which is a special locking tool, which I'll show you when I put it back together. So what I'll do now is I'll cut this safety wire off. This was double wide, it didn't need to be, but I just thought I would. We can take that piece out. Again, I can cut it, and that should just pull out. It really only needs to be done round one, but it's better. So you can see now I can get to the bolt. There's two bolts here which I need to undo. So I'll undo the main bolt. This is captive in the floor pan, whereas these two bolts here, I need somebody to give me a hand to hold them on the inside. They're not captive. Bolts out of the floor for the radius arm bushings, I've had to take the seats out. You can see actually how they work while they're out. We'll give it a good clean. You can see it's quite manky. They're basically just buttons on the front and the slides fit underneath, and you bolt them down on the back. So I'll take this back and I'll show you where I took out the, so there's the two bolt holes there. Fortunately it's not far to put your hand underneath and around the seam, so you don't need two people. So I'll take you underneath now, but it is a pain to get them out. So it gives a chance to give it a good clean inside as well, so that's good. So yeah, I basically just had one arm on top here and then one arm underneath and to get the bolts out. So that's them out now, and they're in the front. So okay, so I've got the bolt out of the pivot now. I had to take the two bolts from the inside and go between the outer sill and the seat. So what I'll do now is I'm going to take this off. You might see this jump back because this bracket or this mounting is actually on a taper, so it might just pop backwards. I'll see if I can get it to show. I don't want to damage the underneath of the car, so it might not. Really fixed in there. I don't get in far enough to break the seal on the rubber. Okay, so now I need to take off this radius arm here. You can see I've got the bottom strap out there, but they really are an extremely tight fit, because what they do is they wedge from the bowl onto the radius arm bushing, and they're really tight, so I need to take the strain off it. I've already taken one off. I've already taken the other side off, which I'll show you, but what I'll do is I'll go through the procedure of taking it apart. So as you can see, there's a split pin in there, but the one thing that's very critical with this is you must make sure that you line up the shaft to the holes on the outside. So if you see here, you'll see there's a hole, and this pin has to be in line with that hole. So you can see the one that side and the one that side. If you get them a spline out, you won't be able to get the pin through because you have to put the pin through the castellated nut through, and it has to be straight. So be careful when you're putting the splines on that you line them up to where the split pins go through, otherwise you'll have lots of problems. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out this lower grease nipple here, because what will happen is this will get jammed when this comes off. So I'll take this grease nipple off and I'll take out the split pin and I'll show you where we are. Then the next step, so it'll be grease nipple, split pin, take the nut out, then I'll take off this rear anti-roll bar and I'll start to loosen this fulcrum pin off. And basically when the shaft comes out, this can all fold down, but obviously you need to take the bearing carrier off because the nut is behind it. And I'll take it around the other side and I'll show you what I mean. So this is the side I've already taken off. I had a lot of trouble getting off the radius arm. There's the radius arm there. This main bushing, when I bought this, I bought these brand new, both sides, because the ones I had on the car were so badly pitted after they'd been sandblasted. I thought I'll buy brand new ones, because these came powder coated and the bushings were already made up. So this is the pivot bushing, and this is the radius arm bushings that's gone, and you can see there that it's quite badly split. If you look on the other side, you can see it's even worse. It's split almost all the way around. So this is the ones I'm going to be replacing. I'll probably just do it with a vise because I don't have a press. This is something I should have invested in years ago, but I didn't. But the main bushings are good. But as you can see, there's some corrosion in there. And when I had the car painted, obviously before I had the car painted, I did it in body shoots, or Raptor, whatever, you know, an underseal if you like. And that was quite thick, and what's happened is it's actually got jammed onto this bushing. This was jammed right inside. You can see where it's almost metal to metal, and it's taken the paint off, and I'll show you that on the car. In fact, you can see how tight it was. I had to use a tyre lever. You can see even the paint, look, even the paint's crushed in between it. So when I put these back, what I'm going to do is clean this out so there's no paint in it. And then I'm going to put copper slip in them, and also I'm going to take off the paint on the piece that goes in that's on the floor, which I'll show you, and I'm going to clean that up and put copper slip on it with I maybe put primer on it and then copper slip. But these were extremely difficult to get out. It was almost like it was I was going to have to use a slide hammer or something. Anyway, so as you can see on this side, I can bring the light round later. But as you can see on this side, I've got the anti-roll bar off, and this is where the bolt goes into here to hold the back of this arm on here. And you can see how it's a blind bolt in there, and it sits and it's captive in there. I can show you once it's all cleaned up, but basically this is a perfect recess for the head to go in. So I'll go and take those two bits out and then I'll bring you back. So, okay, I've got the castellated nut out. So basically I've taken out that bottom grease nipple, which, as I said, will hit the back of this lower wishbone. If you don't, it'll snap it, and if it snaps inside, it's a bugger to get out. And this is the washer and the castellated nut that holds the spline in place. So what I'll do is I'll pop that in there so I don't lose it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo this fulcrum shaft bar. And what will happen is the carrier should fall forward. There you go. Okay. So what I can do now is take this off, and I can push the fulcrum bar through, or fulcrum pin, I should say. So what I'll do is I'll just knock that over. to the end of the thread. It's fairly loose now. Take that off, and what I can do is I can actually pull this fulcrum bar out and obviously support the, so there's the bar coming out. There you go. You can be careful that you hang on to these. This fulcrum bar, you can actually take this spline out. You can just drop this onto this fulcrum bar and just drop the whole thing down and the spline will come out. So you don't actually, if you were doing anything on the drive shafts, you could, a yoke or whatever, you could do that and leave it in place. But because of the situation I'm in, I need to be able to get to this nut, this head at the back here. So I'll just take it, so I can get this off first. There's a tapered shaft on here. I'm about to give it a little knock. Okay, it's a bit tight, I'll take it off later. But this piece actually comes off. It's actually a beveled spacer ring. But I'll pick the camera up once my hands are clean, and I'll show you this, exactly what we're after. If I could bring that down, bring this across, you might be able to see it better. I'll have to pick the camera up just a second. This is the head of the nut, the bolt that goes through this radius arm back bushing, and you can see how it's trapped in there against this, the back of this fulcrum here. You can see this is why these are on it. Bring it around a bit. You can see this is why these are on it. Here they sit and they stop the bolt from coming out. But obviously you have to take the carrier off to get to it. It's a bit of an awkward design, but I think it would have been a lot smarter to maybe put a bolt in the other way. But the problem with that is the shock absorbers are in the way as well. So I guess this is the way they did it. So what I'll do now is put all this back together, and then I'll show you. So what I'll do next is I'll take off this anti-roll bar, and then I can undo the nut and knock this out this way. It'll come out towards me. You can see where this radius arm cup mounting is. You can see how it's gone back to bare metal, and obviously I had this undersail body shuts on it all over the car before it was painted. So you can imagine this has just got absolutely jammed in here with the weight of the car on it. So what I'm going to do is I'll clean this off, I'll prime it, I'll mask it out, prime it, and then put copper slip in it and copper slip inside here as well, but it's absolutely solid on there. So for those of you who are not aware of it, these cup mountings are made so that they shear from the car. I know it might sound a bit strange, but they're actually coal riveted. They're not welded to the car, so whatever you do, don't weld on them. They're just coal riveted. And when I bought these floors, I had Martin Roby put them in for me, so they were in exactly the right position on a jig. Because if you had to replace these, they need to be absolutely spot on. Otherwise you'll find it very difficult to get this arm back in. It is difficult to do anyway, and what you have to do is actually use come along or tie down straps to pull it enough to get it into position for it to go on, which you'll see when I go to put them on again anyway, even though they've been in once. But they are basically made to shear off. So if there was an accident on the back axle, rather than rip the whole floor out, so you'd have to replace the whole floor, or buckle the whole floor, these would rip first, and you could just then replace them. that was why they were made that way. So if anybody wants to know why they're riveted like that. But as I say, what I'll do is I'll clean this now. I'll just prime it, just put grey primer on it, because you don't see it when the cup's on it anyway. And then it'll be nice and smooth. Put some copper coat in between it, and hopefully that'll stop that happening again, because it was just jammed against the paint, the thickness of the paint, I think. And I'll take this one out on this side. Sorry. I'll take this one. This one's out. I've got to just take this bolt out here now and take off this anti-roll bar, and then I'll pull this one down and I'll show you the technique I used to get it off. But they really are very, very tight. I was surprised just how tight these things were. So yeah, but I'll take that one off in the next video. So there'll be a part 2, probably and a part 3, because I've got to buy the spares and put it back together. So on that note, yeah, on that note, it's stay safe, keep the faith, enjoy your hobby.